Residents in East Fayetteville and Goshen are now being asked to conserve water. Dry conditions and extreme heat are causing some water pressure issues. 5 News reporter Lauren Spencer explains how city crews and the region's water supplier are working to keep up as Northwest Arkansas keeps growing.
It's an issue that pops up almost every summer for residents in East Fayetteville as well as here in Goshen due to extreme heat. But city leaders say that issue should be fixed by next year.
It is to do with a lot of development going out east. We are putting together a new pump station that should come online the end of this year, beginning of next year, so that will help greatly next summer.
Until then, they're asking residents to adjust their water usage, don't water lawns or fill swimming pools.
We just really want to make sure that everybody's conserving as much as they can, which is a great practice to do year-round.
Kevin Inboden, Chief Operating Officer at Beaver Water District, says in Fayetteville, it's not a supply issue, but a distribution issue.
If you drive out there, you see large homes, large lots, so there's a lot of irrigation demand that during the summer, it triggers these kinds of restrictions.
He encourages residents to irrigate wisely as their customer city's water demands can be much higher in the summer due primarily to irrigation. And he says demand has skyrocketed in the recent years. Sales are up 30% in just 4 years.
So if you add all of our projects up right now, just for Beaver Water District and pumping water from the lake and treating it and conveying it to the cities, we're looking at about $500 million worth of projects just for us.
He says keeping up with the growing region can be a challenge, but they have no other choice.
If we're commuting to work and it takes twice as long as it used to, it's frustrating, but we can deal with that. But going to the tap and turning on the tap and not getting water or not being able to fight a fire sufficiently, that's not an option for us.
In Fayetteville, covering news where you live, Lauren Spencer, 5 News.
The city of Fort Smith also has a water conservation order in effect right now. This follows last week's water main break, which lowered water levels. Several tanks in the southern part of town are still not back to normal operation. So residents are asked not to water their lawns using city water sources until those restrictions are lifted. Looking ahead, the suspect in the deadly attack on a family in Devil's Den State Park will be arraigned this Thursday. Andrew McGann has been charged with 2 counts of capital murder in the deaths of Clinton and Kristen Brink. If convicted, prosecutors say they plan to seek the death penalty. Investigators have yet to reveal a potential motive, though, for the killings. We learned today that the city of Prairie Grove is planning a fundraiser for the children the Brinks leave behind. They had just moved to town a couple of weeks before the tragedy. This event, the fundraising event, will be Saturday on September 6th with food, live music, and an auction. Mayor David Falk tells us he hopes the event will show the girls that this community stands with them.
No matter what, there's going to be a stigma in the back of their mind that they will remember this place, for this is the place that they've lost their parents. We wanted to hopefully add to that and say, if it can ever be replaced, let's replace it with, this is also the area where communities came together, where communities supported each other, and where a community kind of enwrapped them in.
You can find all the details about the fundraiser on our website, 5newsonline.com. Well, new tonight, we've learned that convicted killer Grant Hardin was misclassified by the Department of Corrections before he escaped from the Calico Rock prison for nearly 2 weeks earlier this year. The DOC director confirmed the development during a meeting tonight. He says Hardin should have been inside the maximum security facility, but a miscalculation placed him in medium security. The director says the error also affected the placement of several other prisoners. 2 workers in the Calico Rock prison have also been fired for security breaches that led to Hardin's escape. He's now back in custody at the Varner Supermax prison, where he's serving 2 sentences for murder and rape. An explosion at the U.S. Steel plant in Pittsburgh sent shockwaves that could be felt miles away today. Meg Oliver has the latest from the scene, where at least 1 person was killed, more than 10 others hurt, as workers risked their lives rescuing others.
There's possible entrapment under the rubble.
Just before 11 a.m., the first calls came in after an explosion inside what's known as the reversing room, which regulates the massive ovens at the plant. Leaving behind a gaping hole in the building, several people were trapped inside.
Reported explosion with multiple injuries, cleared and works.
With thick smoke billowing in the air, first responders worked to pull survivors out of the rubble. U.S. Steel Executive Vice President Scott Buchisio says 1 person is still missing.
We think we know the general location of that employee, but we're not 100% sure.
The plant employs more than 1,000 people. It's unclear how many were inside the room where the explosion happened. Deanna Forkey works across the street from the plant.
Our door blew open at the same time, and when I looked up and actually looked out the window to notice, I saw the black smoke. At that point I realized there was an explosion over there. It wasn't normal.
This is not the first incident at this plant. In 2018, a Christmas Eve fire cost the company $40 million. And in February, 2 workers were reportedly injured after a buildup of gases exploded, causing minor injuries. Clarendon's Mayor Richard Latanzi says the mill is a big part of the community.
Some people are not going to see the same husband or son or somebody that's working the mill, and it's just a sad day for Clarendon.
As far as the air quality, they haven't detected any contaminants above federal standards. In fact, they just canceled the cautionary order for residents who live within a mile of here to stay indoors. Meg Oliver, CBS News, Clarendon, Pennsylvania.
3 people, including a child, are dead after a shooting in the parking lot of a Target store in North Austin. The city's police chief says the suspect, a 32-year-old man with a history of mental illness, fled the scene in a stolen vehicle, crashed it, then hijacked another car before eventually being taken into custody on the other side of town. Police found 2 victims dead at the scene. A third died later at a hospital, and a 4th person was treated on site for minor injuries. Well, there was a homecoming today that was decades in the making. A U.S. soldier killed at Pearl Harbor finally returned to his hometown for a proper farewell. Reporter Daniel Schuster was there and has this look at how the community came together to honor him.
The Shawano community showed out to welcome Private Herbert McLaughlin home 83 years after he was killed at Pearl Harbor.
It's kind of surreal. I heard stories about my great uncle having been killed at Pearl Harbor growing up. He obviously died 20 years before I was born. I kind of thought 88 decades later, they're going to really find the guy?
On December 7th, 1941, he was in the hospital recovering from a broken nose from a volleyball match.
The hospital was next to the shoreline in Oahu. There was a Navy destroyer tied up there, and a Japanese Zero was attacking the Navy destroyer, and a bunch of guys on the ship shot the Zero down. It crashed into the hospital, and that's how Herbert got killed.
Without dog tags, his remains went unidentified for decades until DNA testing confirmed his identity last year. A broken nose helping to match his story to the records.
When the folks from the Army came to tell me, how they had identified him, I asked a question early on. I said, did he have a broken nose? And the woman presenting information said, I don't think so. And then I let them present their information. At the end, I told them the story, and she went back and she looked through the paper and she said, oh my gosh, he had a broken nose.
The procession led to Woodlawn Cemetery, where full military honors included a 21-gun salute, taps, and the presentation of the flag to his family.
Well, I think it's good. We honor our veterans. There's less and less of them every day. And Shawano's a great community. They're very supportive of the veterans, so I just think it's great.
His Purple Heart will be donated to the VFW post that bears his name, ensuring his service and sacrifice will be remembered for generations.
Herbert left, Shawano 85 years ago, and nobody alive knew him, and yet here they are to welcome him home. I think it's a tribute to the community, and it's a tribute to Herbert.
Herbert was awarded several other medals after his death, including the World War II Victory Medal and the American Defense Service Medal. Well, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders will join the U.S. Secretary of Education tomorrow. Linda McMahon will tour several schools and hold a roundtable discussion. She'll tour 2 schools in Little Rock. Then the roundtable will be at the Saline County Career and Technical Campus. These stops are part of a national tour that coincides with the start of the new school year, and she plans to visit schools in all 50 states.